Master, what should be our attitude towards dialectic materialism, with which the communist Marxists intend to free man from the alienation that one lives today? The Master said, "Communists are religious. All communists are religious. Religion comes from the Latin word religare, meaning to rebind the soul with God. They also want to reconnect. That is, they are wanting to reconnect more and more with their material God, right? They worship the material God, therefore, they are religious. They are religious fanatics. So then, we must first of all develop understanding. First of all, open our eyes a little to know where dialectic materialism comes from. I learned all the materialist dialectics of Karl Marx, and I know it by heart, from page to page. Proof that I know it is that I gave myself the luxury of refuting it in the Social Christ. I have it here in my head, all of it, and yet I don't believe it. Why don't I believe in that farce? Precisely because it is a farce. On what do I base myself to say that the materialist dialectics of Karl Marx is a farce? I base myself on Karl Marx, who was the first enemy of such farce. Karl Marx was the first enemy of Marxism. At the first Communist International, Karl Marx stood up and said, "Gentlemen, I am not a Marxist." They all told him, "But how? If you are the Master, you are the one who has taught us this doctrine. How is it possible that you are not a Marxist?" He repeated, "I am not a Marxist. I am not a Marxist." And for the third time he said it, "I am not a Marxist." And then came, as a consequence of that, which was really a failure, that first Communist International, a multitude of political sects, resulted from the declaration of Karl Marx when he declared himself an enemy of Marxism. And why did this man have the courage to declare himself an enemy of Marxism? Because he was a Jewish religious fanatic. Listen well, when Karl Marx died, religious funeral honors of a great rabbi were rendered to him, and as a proof that this man was religious was what he wrote in a magazine in Paris. What did he say in that magazine? What did he manifest? I am going to tell you what he manifested. He said the following: "Through the triumph of the world proletariat, we will create the Universal Soviet Socialist Republic with its capital in Jerusalem, and we will take possession of all the wealth of the nations, so that the prophecies of our holy prophets of the Talmud may be fulfilled." These were the words of a religious rabbi. If we read what it says there, then why did this man write his materialistic dialectics? To comply with the protocols of the wise men of Zion, which literally say, "It doesn't matter that we have to fill the world with materialism and disgusting atheism. The day we triumph, referring to the Sanhedrin, we will teach the religion of Moses, duly codified and dialectically, and we will not allow any other religion in the world." So Karl Marx complied with the protocols. Karl Marx invented that jargon, that lying dish to destroy, through skepticism, all religions and leave only one standing, the religion of Moses. That was a weapon that he used to destroy all religious beliefs of the world and leave only the Jewish one standing. What is the proof of that? Anyone who takes the trouble to travel through the Soviet Union will discover that in the middle of the Soviet Union there is a Jewish state with a religious theocratic government. All religions in Russia are persecuted except one, the Jewish. In the synagogues, the Jews, behind closed doors, they study the religion of Moses. And in the streets, they make the people swallow materialistic dialectics. Because the protocols of Zion literally say, Gentiles have no right to have any religion. They are beasts of burden that God has given us for our service, and He has given them human form so that we may not be horrified at them. A student says, such an evil, the protocols of the elders of Zion. The Master said, so, if you analyze this judiciously, you will come to the conclusion that Karl Marx was a religious man, a Jewish rabbi. He wrote a farce, and it was easy for him to write it, because he took Hegel's metaphysical dialectic, stripped it of his eternal principles, and then with it made a dish for fools. On a certain occasion, while I was in the astral world, it occurred to me to summon Karl Marx, and he arrived. So I asked him a point-blank question, let's say point-blank, as one says. I asked him, well, it's been many years since you died. His physical body turned into dust. His physical body turned to dust in the Pantheon, within the tomb, and now I find you here alive, in these inferior regions. So what about your materialist dialectic? Karl Marx kept silent, looked at his little watch, turned his back and left. At a short distance away, he let out a sarcastic guffaw. That man appeared there dressed in overalls like a worker. A short distance away, a sarcastic laugh. With intuition, I was able to capture the meaning of that guffaw that I translate with the following sentences. Fool, chump, don't you realize that I wrote a farce? Don't you realize that? How silly are you? As a curious thing, that man is awake and conscious. Lenin follows him. Lenin looks like a somnambulist. Lenin is not an initiate at all. Or at least he's a fallen bodhisattva, right? I mean a fallen bodhisattva, but he follows Karl Marx like a sleepwalker. He is unconscious, asleep. He goes behind him. He is the shadow that follows Marx. At all hours he follows him. A shadow, but Marx is awake. He is awakened in evil and for evil. He has a nimbus of false glory. Now, I am not going to speak out against the Jewish people, because that would be absurd. It's like one pronouncing against Germany for the case that it had with Hitler and the Third Reich, which caused the Second World War. And there are a multitude of Jewish elderly people, women and children, who have never in their lives known anything about the protocols of the wise men of Zion, who do not have plans for world domination, who only care about living. Thus, to condemn Jewish people could be a crime. Attacking the Jews is a crime, because they are people, and how are you going to attack people? No, the culprits are the governments, and the Jewish government is the Sanhedrin, with its 300 members, who have projects that date back 300 centuries, projects of 3,000 years already. 3,000 years to achieve world domination. That's it. A student asked the master, "Do they have world domination?" The master said, "So far, the projects are giving them results. Hitler knew this, but Hitler did nothing but attack the wretched merchants of Europe. That is the absurdity of Hitler. Burning so many children, so many women, so many old people in those gas chambers to make them die. That is a very serious, monstrous crime. Those creatures who knew nothing of the plans of the Sanhedrin. Meanwhile, the main ones of the Sanhedrin in the United States, in England, in France, and in Russia, or in other countries of the world, I say, were laughing at Hitler. Those were the ones that finished him off. The Sanhedrin ended Hitler." A student asked the master, "From what one sees, the fight is going to be terrible for us, since in the universities the average number of communists is very high, so the intellectualism there is going to work hard." The master said, "Well, you have to break them up through logic. It is good to tell all the communistoids that Soviet Russia itself has just discovered the vital body, because in Russia itself there is currently a certain electronic device with which they discovered the vital body, and they baptized it with the name bioplastic body. They have it under study, inside the organism and outside the organism. And in England there is another gigantic electronic device with which they are studying the astral body. So then, what are we left with? Those superior existential bodies of the being are being discovered with special lenses, with special devices. The higher dimensions are currently being pierced by very powerful lenses, and the materialistic dialectic is being dusted. Proof that it is turning to dust is that statistics report that the greatest cultural production of recent times in the field of parapsychology comes from the Soviet Union. In all hospitals in Russia, currently in all clinics, parapsychological experiments are being performed. Parapsychology is all the rage in Russia, and at the rate we are going, if the Sanhedrin don't intervene, before long materialist dialectics will have to be burned alive in Moscow's Red Square, will have to be reduced to ashes. Why? Because with the glasses, with the devices, with the parapsychological experiments, it has been destroyed, it has been left without any basis. After all, it is a farce created by Karl Marx, created by a religious fanatic who wanted to destroy all the other religions in the world through skepticism. A student asked the master, "The Jews, let's say the Jewish race, where does it come from?" The master said, "It is a mixture of the Hyperboreans with the fourth Atlantean sub-race. From there, the original Semitic was born. The Hyperboreans were mixed with the fourth sub-race of the Atlanteans, and from there, the Atlantean Semitic was born. From the primitive Atlantean Semite, it becomes then the current Semite. In Palestine, precisely, there is not the Semitic in all its purity. Please note that they are already heavily mixed with Germans. Haven't you heard of blood theft? When the Jews from Palestine, from Israel, understood that their race was degenerating by not interbreeding, they selected a certain number of women who traveled to Germany. There they mixed with men and conceived, and after they conceived, as they conceived, they returned to Palestine. A certain amount duly studied to add some German blood to their Semitic blood. So it is not completely pure. Where it is completely pure is in Arabia, in the Sahara Desert. There, underground, there is an underground city of pure original Semites, without any mixture, who have very different customs. They dress like Arabs and walk like Arabs, and the Arabs believe that they are also Arabs. But there is no such thing. They are Jews and live in the desert as Arabs and dress the same, and they preserve all the Judaic traditions. They have never mixed. A student asked the master, "How do they dress physically?" The master said, "As Arabs." The student replied, "Are they not related to the Tuareg tribes over there?" The master said, "They can even hang out with the Arabs and everything, and they get confused with the Arab peoples. But they are very different in their customs. They have an underground city, underground in the Sahara Desert." A secret city? Yes, they are different. Those are Jews, Jews without mixture. A student asked the master, "Then what level of culture do they have? Say, do they practice philosophy or do they have religion?" The master said, "They preserve the Zohar, the Jewish Kabbalah, etc. They have an esoteric culture based on ancient rabbinic traditions." A student asked the master, "But is it a culture, let's say, according to divine laws?" The master said, "Yes, according to divine law, and in Palestine itself, we cannot deny that in Palestine, there are about 80,000 Gnostics. About 80,000 Gnostics in Palestine itself, and that they have endured persecution for more than 20 centuries in Palestine itself." That is all for now. Inverential peace.